Have you ever heard of places that don't show up on GPS? It's not just a system glitch. Sometimes it feels like the world hides certain regions on purpose, for protection. But what if someone ended up in a place like that? And worse, by accident? Have you ever wondered how many ghost towns are hidden in plain sight? Towns that were never erased, simply because they were never officially registered? Yeah, some people live to explore those gaps in the world, and some people just want to fuel up and keep driving. This story isn't about monsters. Not exactly. It's about what happens when you walk into a place you were never meant to, and discover that the rules inside aren't human. It all started on one of those lonely car trips. I was driving back from a company event in rural Indiana, and the GPS decided to cut through a secondary road in the middle of nowhere. Nothing unusual. I'd done it before, and honestly, I kind of enjoyed it. Empty road, silence, starry sky, almost meditative. Except that night, my tank was running lower than it should have. The warning light came on. Low fuel. And I knew I couldn't risk it. I opened the navigation app, but the area was blank. No gas stations anywhere nearby. But then, something appeared on the map. A single point. A lone marker, with the name Dry Creek, Gas and Supply. I had never heard of it, and the text looked weird, almost badly formatted, like a typo. But it was that, or pull over on the shoulder. I turned onto the access road, it suggested. The road was narrow, thick woods on both sides, and no cars anywhere but mine. After about 15 minutes, I saw lights. A gas station, kind of retro-looking, but lit up. With those old pumps and a little store beside it. It looked like something out of a 70s movie. I parked, got out, and the silence was dense. No crickets, no wind, nothing. Even the air felt still. The pump wasn't automatic, so I went inside the shop to ask for help. That's when I saw the attendant. He was behind the counter, just standing there. He wore a beige uniform yellowed with age, a flat-brimmed cap, and a flannel shirt over it, like it was fall, even though the night was hot and humid. He didn't say a word. Not a good evening, not a need help. He just stared at me. I can't explain it, but that look went straight through me. It was like he wasn't really seeing me, or like he already knew who I was somehow. I tried to break the tension, pointed at my car, asked him to unlock the pump. He blinked slowly and turned away without a word. By the time I got back, the nozzle was already loose, like someone had handled it while I was gone. I fueled up quickly. It was only when I got back into the car that I noticed. My phone signal was completely gone. No bars, no data, no GPS. Worse, the station marker on the map had vanished. Gone. Even the name Dry Creek wasn't there anymore. Now the app showed me sitting in the middle of an empty field. I stared at that for a few seconds, trying to figure out if it was a glitch or if I was just too tired. But then, I noticed something that froze me to the core. My car, shut off. Not a sound anywhere. But in the rear-view mirror, the attendant was standing outside. By the pump. Staring at me. He hadn't been there before, and I hadn't heard footsteps, no door, no bell from the shop. Nothing. He had just appeared. And he stood there. Motionless. Like he was waiting for me to react. Or like he knew I'd seen him. I shoved the key into the ignition, started the engine, and drove off in a hurry, without looking back. But before I rounded the curve to the main road, I saw the sign at the station entrance. Except now, instead of Dry Creek, Gas and Supply, it read, Welcome Back. Painted in red, sloppy letters, as if someone had swapped the sign while I was fueling up. But I had never been there before. At least, not that I remembered. I left the station behind, but the feeling that something was wrong clung to me like the smell of gasoline on my clothes. The asphalt felt rougher than before, and even with my headlights on, the road ahead barely showed more than 30 feet. Driving through that darkness was like walking down a hallway with no end. Everything around me was too dark, too quiet. Like the world had been switched off, and I was the only idiot who hadn't noticed. The main highway, according to GPS, back when it worked, was straight, with gentle curves and clear signage. But now, it was like the road had shifted. Slightly. Not sharply enough to raise alarm, but a slow, creeping drift. Like when you're floating in the ocean, and you only realize the current carried you away when the shore is already gone. I should have stopped. I should have turned back. But I didn't. I don't know if it was pride, fear, or just that stubborn human thing, believing you're in control, even when you're clearly not. And then, I saw it. The sign. White metal. Black block letters. Dry Creek. 3 miles. My body froze. No. Impossible. I had just left there. I should have been heading toward the interstate, not circling back to town. But even if I had, how could I have looped all the way around in under 15 minutes? I stopped the car, rolled down the window. Silence. A thick, heavy silence that stretched in every direction, like the air itself was waiting for me to make the first move. I checked my phone again, just to be sure. Nothing. Not a single bar. Just the location icon, trembling in the middle of a blank map. I looked at the road ahead, took a deep breath, and kept driving, not out of courage, but because I had no idea what else to do. 3 miles later, I started seeing lights. Not headlights. Fixed lights. Street lamps. Windows. Neon. It was the town, or something pretending to be one. Old houses, porches with rocking chairs sitting still. Store signs flickering with electrical faults. Everything too quiet. No cars, no music, no TVs glowing behind windows, no dogs barking. Only the town, dry, faded, like it had been left out in the sun for decades, then hastily painted over by someone who had never actually seen a real town. And in the center, the square, an empty playground, a crooked gazebo, and in the middle of the garden, a park bench where a figure was sitting, facing away, motionless. For some reason, I didn't want to drive past it. I didn't want her to turn. I didn't want to know what was on that face, but it was the only road. So I drove slowly. No honking. No staring. And she never moved. But when I looked in the rearview mirror, I swear on everything sacred, she was no longer there. The bench was empty. And then I realized. The bench cast no shadow. I decided to take the first street to the right. Maybe it was a way out. The houses became more spaced out, the lampposts less frequent. A wooden fence appeared on the horizon. That was good news. Anything that hinted at the end of town was better than that endless loop of identical streets. And then, another sign. Dry Creek, 3 miles. The same one, the same fading, the same scratch on the Y. As if someone had tried to erase it but gave up halfway. I slammed on the brakes, looked around. I was at the exact same spot where I had first seen the sign. Only now the park bench was empty from the very start. No sign of the figure from before. Sweat dripped down my face, but the air was cold. Very cold. I glanced at the car clock, 3:17 a.m. No way. I had been driving for at least an hour since then. But the display didn't lie. Or rather, it lied in the most honest way possible. It had frozen. 3:17. Same minute, same second. As if time itself had decided to loop along with the town. I tried turning back, taking another exit. 3 streets later, another sign. Dry Creek, 3 miles. I tried cutting through a dirt path, going behind the houses. It was the last logical option I had left, but the dirt road ended at a fence, with the same sign nailed to a crooked post. Dry Creek, 3 miles. I could swear it wasn't just another one. It was the same one. Not just the same model, the same. It was as if the world had been taped together into an infinite loop. As if the town were a poorly built stage set, with cardboard walls and painted backdrops repeating endlessly behind a curtain. That's when I realized it wasn't about being lost. It was deeper. I had been trapped there. The thought hit me like a punch to the gut. And when I looked forward, trying to convince myself I was overreacting, I saw the bench, again. And now, it wasn't empty. Something was sitting there. Not a person. But it occupied the space of one. Its shape was too slender, Long, crooked, and the face. No, not a face. It was as if the skin had been pulled too far to one side. A face with no center. A face that seemed to look in all directions at once, even while still. My body froze. I shifted into reverse and got away however I could, with the town spinning around me like a model built by someone unhinged. The scariest feeling wasn't fear. It was certainty. Certainty that I was alone, in something that wasn't the real world. And the town knew it. Logic had already abandoned me. And honestly, I was starting to abandon logic too. Logic said towns don't duplicate themselves, that time doesn't freeze, that signs don't reproduce like bacteria in a loop. So I stopped driving. Parked the car in the middle of the street, one of the many main streets I had already passed, and got out, deciding to do what anyone would in a lucid nightmare: knock on a door. I chose a random house, one with floral curtains and a child's bicycle tossed in the yard. All very normal. Or too normal, you know? I climbed the 3 steps of the wooden porch and knocked. Nothing. Knocked again. Silence. But not regular silence. It was the kind that had weight, as if the air were waiting for you to make a mistake. I pushed the door. Unlocked. The inside looked like it had come straight out of a 70s catalog. Beige wallpaper, thick carpet, fake leather couch. Everything smelled of mothballs and frozen time. Literally frozen. The wall clock read 3:17. Of course. I stepped inside carefully. Each step sank into the carpet and made the creaking boards sound louder than they should. There was a mirror in the living room. An oval, antique mirror, framed in carved wood. And that's where I felt the first thing truly wrong. My reflection took half a second too long to copy me. It was subtle. But I saw it. I swear I saw it. I made a quick hand gesture. The reflection followed, perfectly. But the doubt had already been planted. I leaned closer, looked into the eyes of my reflection. My eyes. Except they weren't. There was the faintest smile at the corners of its mouth. A short, hidden smirk, almost imperceptible. Like someone who knows something you don't. Like someone who recognizes you, but not as you. I backed away. In the kitchen, everything was just as old. A radio sat on top of the fridge. No wires, no power switch. But it turned on, by itself, static, then a voice, male, whispering, on repeat. Dry creek, dry creek, dry creek. I turned the radio off. It didn't matter. The sound kept going, now coming from the sink. It was as if the entire house were trying to absorb me, to remember me, as if it had known me before I arrived. And then I realized. Every reflective surface, mirrors, the microwave's metal, even the window glass, was showing a version of me slightly out of sync. My eyes weren't looking in the right direction. My posture was a little more hunched. In one of the windows, I saw my reflection turn, without me moving at all. Right then, I understood. The town wasn't meant to be visited. It was meant to be lived in, by you, by someone like you. Or rather, by something that needed you to exist. I had to get out. But outside, everything had changed. The bicycle in the yard was gone. The sky was now a flat, motionless blue. No wind, no clouds, nothing, as if the sky were just a badly painted backdrop. And me? Well, I no longer knew where the street was. The door I had entered through now led to another room, and the clock still read 3:17. The door now opened onto a hallway. Long. Longer than the house could possibly allow. The air there was thick, as if each breath required extra effort. The walls were lined with mirrors, one on each side, evenly spaced like sentinels. And each reflected a different version of me. But they weren't normal mirrors. Each reflection seemed slightly ahead of me, as if it knew what I was about to do. One reflection stared with hatred, another grinned sickly, a third was crying. But none of them moved at the same time as me. It was as if each one represented a possibility, or a fate. I kept walking. The mirrors began to warp, bending into impossible angles. Soon, I realized I could no longer see my real reflection. Only them, the other versions. Until the last mirror showed me something that froze, me in place. It wasn't my reflection. It was my body, lying on the floor, motionless, eyes open. And something, crouched beside it, as if studying me. It was too dark to see the creature's face, but the eyes were exactly like mine. The mirror cracked. Fractures spread across the image, but whatever was in there remained still, staring at me from inside the glass. I ran, raced down the hallway without looking to the sides. When I opened the next door, I came face to face with my boss's office. The one I knew. With the oak desk, the leather armchair, the shelf full of old folders. But there was a difference. There was a porcelain doll on the desk. It wasn't an ordinary doll. The face looked familiar. The glassy eyes had something human about them. And when I got closer, something I deeply regret, I realized it was breathing. Every place I entered showed me a new version of what I could be. A more obedient reflection. A more submissive version. A more convenient me. And if I stayed there long enough, one of them would leave in my place. But I still had a chance. I could still get out. Or at least, that's what I believed. And that's when I heard something behind me. Slowly, I turned. And I saw my own face staring back at me, sitting in the armchair. Not the doll. Me. A second me. But he was cleaner. Hair neat, clothes flawless. He smiled, a cold, polite smile. And he said, "Trust me, it's easier if you stop resisting." The light went out, and everything went dark. When the light returned, I was alone again. The armchair was empty. The doll was gone. So was the alternate me. But something had changed. The office window, which had once opened to the downtown street, now showed an empty parking lot, lit only by flickering fluorescent lights, about to burn out. I left. Left without thinking. I wanted distance from that place, from the building, from the city. And that's when I realized. The street I came out on wasn't the same one I had entered from. It was as if the office had moved, or as if I had been shifted around a board game without noticing. I walked a few steps, entered what looked like an alley, a shortcut, but as soon as I reached the end of it, I found myself standing in front of the same office again. The sign with my boss's name, the same facade, the same windows. I tried another way. Cut through an abandoned convenience store, crossed a bridge, and walked through an old cemetery with cracked tombstones. And again, the same office. The city was folding around me, rebuilding itself, closing in. I looked at my phone. Still no signal. But something was wrong with the lock screen. Where the time and date should be, there was only one phrase. "You have already been chosen." I couldn't erase it. Couldn't turn off the device. The phrase stayed there, like it was part of the system. And then it started vibrating. Non-stop. When I looked again, the front camera had turned on by itself. But what showed on the screen wasn't me. It was the doll. On the screen, still staring at me from wherever it was. Behind it, a mirror. And in that mirror, I saw my reflection. But I wasn't looking at the phone. My reflection was turned away. Standing still. In a room I couldn't recognize. I shut the phone off violently, threw it on the ground, and ran. But wherever I went, it always led back to the same place. Sometimes it was the office. Other times it was Mr. Miller's house. That Victorian house he claimed he only used for meetings. But inside there was nothing that resembled a meeting. In the room, a chair, a mirror, and a closed box tied with a black ribbon. Every time I entered that place, I heard my name. But not shouted, not spoken. It was thought, a voice inside my head. He will give in. He's not strong enough. He's already getting confused. I started to question if I really still was me. My thoughts were becoming scrambled, my memories inconsistent. For example, I remembered coming to this city for work. But why? What was the reason again? A delivery? An interview? And the name of the city? Now, no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't recall. I tried writing it down. My hand trembled, and when I finished, I read what had come out. Dry Creek. But I didn't remember choosing that. It was like someone had guided my hand. I needed to get out of there. Or rather, I needed to get out of me. Because it felt like the hell was installing itself inside me. I tried one more time to leave the city, got in the car, turned on the GPS. The map wouldn't load. Only a fixed point appeared. You are here, but no road, no route. Only that point, in the center of a vast blank screen, as if I were in the only place that still existed. Dry Creek. I was in the car, motionless, the GPS still useless, flashing that single mocking point. You are here, in the middle of nothing. But then something different happened. A notification appeared on the car's screen. Something that made no sense. Playing security recording, 0303. Sound began pouring out of the speakers, a recorded audio. Faint. It was my own breathing. Recorded. And not from now. I knew it instantly. I was panting, like I had been running. Then a crack, like wood snapping. And finally, a laugh. Low, guttural, sounding like it came from right next to the microphone, or from inside my head. I shut off the sound violently. But it was too late. The memory was alive now, burning like a torch you can't extinguish. Home wasn't a recording. It was a trap. I got out of the car. I had no idea where I was, but I couldn't stay there any longer. It was as if the vehicle itself was infected, complicit in all of it. I walked. I don't know for how long. My feet sank into damp, unstable ground. And when I began to recognize the shapes around me, I realized the worst. I was back. The house. The cursed house. But this time, I wasn't coming from the front. It was from the back. From a side that hadn't even seemed to exist before. A half-open door, hanging from a crooked hinge, waited for me as if it had always been there. And inside, a table. With a cassette tape. Yes, a tape. One of those old ones. And beside it, a recorder. Without thinking, I pressed play. It was my voice. Narrating everything. With details I didn't even remember experiencing. It was like someone had transcribed my fear, my steps, my escape. And with every word I heard, I realized. It had been recorded long before I lived it. As if this story had been written before I even entered that road. As if I were only acting out what had already been scripted by something else. My name was spoken at the end of the tape. In a whisper so close it made me turn around, even knowing no one would be there. The tape stopped. The recorder ejected it on its own, and inside the reel, wound up, there was a crumpled note. Torn in 3 pieces, held together with old tape. It read, "Time repeats itself for those who do not learn." My head was pounding. A sharp, high-pitched sound swallowed the room. I couldn't tell anymore if I was asleep, hallucinating, or stuck inside a déjà vu within another déjà vu. All I wanted was to get out. But the door wasn't where I remembered. The house had shifted again, and I was trapped. With the tape, with my own voice, with whatever was playing with my reality. It felt like being inside a place that remembered me. Every wall, every crack, every noise seemed to know my footsteps before I made them. As if the house, or whatever it now was, had reshaped itself to keep me there. Not as a guest, but as part of the scenery. I walked. The floor no longer creaked, it sighed. A deep, almost organic sound. And with every room I crossed, the architecture warped, as though someone was redrawing the lines in a rush, careless. The walls bent, doors shifted, windows showed places that didn't exist. I knew there was no way out, but I kept looking anyway. That's when I stepped into a hallway I was certain hadn't been there before. long, suffocating. The walls were lined with mirrors, but none of them reflected me exactly. There was always a delay, a movement that didn't match. I raised my hand. The reflection hesitated. I breathed. It smiled. That wasn't me. It smiled on its own. I froze, trying to process it. And then, the reflection lifted something I knew too well. The cassette tape. The same one I had just listened to minutes ago. The reflection brought it to its mouth and bit down. The crack of plastic filled my ears like a scream of static. I covered them, but the sound wasn't outside. It was inside me. The mirrors went dark, one by one, as if lights were being switched off behind them. At the end of the hallway, only one door remained. Red, with a single word scrawled across it. Return. Return to where? The office? The highway? Before it all began? Or to the exact moment I lost control of my own story? The handle was hot, almost alive. And when I turned it, I didn't step into another room. I stepped into an elevator. Yes, an elevator. Standing there in the middle of it all, as if it were the center of an invisible maze. The doors shut by themselves, no buttons, just a mirror at the back, and a small speaker above it. That's where the voice came from. My voice. Repeating fragments of everything I'd lived in the last few days. As if someone had recorded every thought, and now was playing them back, shuffled, distorted, like a mixtape of personal madness. You are exactly where you're supposed to be. Time repeats itself for those who don't learn. You are being watched. You've been here before. The words twisted together. The voice laughed, then cried, then silence. The mirror shook. And that's when I realized it wasn't a mirror. It was a window. And on the other side, someone exactly like me, but with empty eyes, staring, unblinking, waiting for me to make the wrong move. The elevator jolted, dropped. The speed was unreal, like I was being launched, straight into the earth, into the core of myself. And then, it stopped. The doors opened, and I was back in the office parking lot, badge around my neck, phone ringing. The sound was too loud for that hour. Morning, night, whatever time it was supposed to be. I was back. Somehow. Same parking lot, but a thin mist hovered, rising off the asphalt like steam after rain. My badge, my clothes, damp but intact. My car, right where I left it. I picked up the phone. No one spoke. Just breathing. Then, a voice. Not mine, but close. Too close. Like someone trying to imitate me, but just off, with a delay. Too forced to sound human. Have you come back? I tried to answer, but my mouth was sealed shut from the inside. Speaking felt like the last right I'd ever have. The line dropped, and then I noticed. The car key was on the passenger seat. The engine was already running, but the radio was off. Still, I could hear the music. That same song, the one from the tape. I stepped out of the car. Took a few steps. The office looked the same. No lights, no life. But there was a shadow in my boss's office window. Back turned, moving as if speaking to someone. But the room was empty, I was sure. Almost. I crossed the lot. My legs moved on their own. No choice. Just the next inevitable step in a narrative written by someone, or something, else. The front door was cracked open. Something that never happened there. I climbed the stairs. The office was empty. No desk, no chairs, no files. Just a cardboard box in the center, sealed, wrapped in black tape. No label, no sender, no recipient. Only one word, scrawled in pen across the top. Resend. That's when it all became clear. I hadn't survived something. I was the something. The box wasn't an end. It was a cycle. And my role was just to continue it. Carry the box. Pass it on. deliver it to the next poor soul foolish enough to stay too late, to work too hard, to cross past 3:17 a.m. Yes, the 3:17 shift was never about work. It was about exchange. One by one, each with their tape, each with their repetition, each with their story. The world has its rules, and sometimes, for one to return, another has to stay. Today, I walked out, but the one who stayed doesn't know it yet. And tomorrow when the door opens again, they'll find out. Have you ever been trapped somewhere that felt like it was watching you? Ever come home, only to realize it wasn't really your home? Leave your comment, or better, your confession, below. Have you ever had a night shift you'll never forget? Share it with us. Your story might be the next one. And of course, if you want this story to reach more survivors out there, hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. See you in the next story.